Today is October 9th. The postseason games are being played, but not in the Berg. And hey, we got the guys from the 412 Double Play podcast on today to talk about the upcoming offseason. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Let's go. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I'm joined as always by my brother Jake, and also Michael and Ed from the 412 Double Play podcast. What's up, guys?
What's going on, man?
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So, Michael sent me a message a few weeks ago, said, hey, let's combine. Let's do a recap of the 2023 season, looking ahead to the offseason, all that stuff. So that's what we're doing. We just these aren't in order. You can listen to them in any order you want, but we just finished recording their side of it where we do the recap. So if you want to hear another more in-depth than what we've done so far, recap of the 2023 season, that's where to find it. Because that's what we did just moments ago. But way more in depth than, like, we just really high level so far. So far, everything else. So when you're finished listening to this one, jump over there, check that one out, and hear us all talk about that. For this episode, we're going to be talking about going into the offseason, kind of our projections, predictions, and all of those sort of things. I guess just looking forward to everything within the next few months, for when the off season actually starts. Gary and Jim, they called me out. They were like saying about the offense, the off season offense. It's football season. The off season, and they said, I know it's not quite the off season, as Josh continues to remind us on their show. So I just had to say it again, just for the sake of being called out for it. I gotta be who I am, I guess, right? I gotta be who I am. So
I mean, unless you're Jake's wife, does it really matter right now?
Well, she's down 0-1 right now too. Big Ronald McDonald.
She might be cheering for a new team next spring.
I know.
Hey, we'll see, man. I won't say that I'm rooting for the Phillies, but
It's too tough. Too hard, man.
All right, so we're going to talk about the offseason roster, and we are going to talk about some needs of improvement and maybe have a little fun with projections and predictions, as we like to do here. I don't know how much of that you guys like to do in particular, but we do the whole thing. We try to predict everything, and we love being wrong about things, I guess.
yeah, we're not good at it, but we do it.
So
I'm real bad at it.
Jake called for 20 home runs for Key Bryan. What else? What was the crazy one that you had?
Let me look here. I do actually still have my notes sitting on my desk.
He had a 2020 season for Key.
Yeah.
I was pretty close to calling that too. So
Yeah, I had Key leading the team in steals too, didn't I?
Yeah. That's all right. I think when he got thrown out a few extra times in April, he was like, yeah, I'm just going to shut it down. So, all right, let's get into it then. 40-man roster right now as it stands. So we were just like looking at all of Google, trying to find out when the dates actually are. So we don't know. Go follow Ethan Houlihan on Twitter and you'll find out, or X, whatever. And you'll find out, I'm sure, because I'm sure he knows. I rely on Google and people are writing articles about it, and so far they're not. But essentially, 5 days after the conclusion of the World Series, which we think, we've got to have it down to 40. And at that day, players come off the 60-day injured list, and we have, what'd you say, 5, Michael? 6?
So technically we've got 7, but Vince Velasquez and Andrew McCutchen become free
That's
agents, so they're not going to count towards
Yeah,
it.
and they become free agents on the same day that they have to come off the 60 days. So 5 as it stands, and we're going to be at 45 once we say McCutchen and Velasquez become free agents on that day. We're going to be at 45 players on our 40-man roster. And we're going to have to, not only is Rule 5 coming if we're adding anybody for that, but we've got to get it down to 40. And quite frankly, people are going to have to go. Yeah, we got to make 5 people on this roster right now are going to have to go. So let's start with Ed, then we'll go to Michael, then we'll go to Jake. Just name one name that's gone.
Name one. Vinny Capra.
Vinny Capra's off. All right, Michael.
Thomas Hatch.
Ooh. Okay, Jake.
One that I'm a little mixed opinions about, but I think Andujar's gone.
Yeah. So Andujar, MLB Trade Rumors put out their projected salaries for the offseason for arbitration eligible players. Ryan Barucki is projected at $1.3 million. Mitch Keller at $6 million. JT Brubaker at $2.28 million, which is the same as he made last year, and since he didn't play, it's likely that he repeats that. David Bednar $4.7 million, and Connor Joe $2 million. And then Andujar, $2.2 million is a projected arbitration number for him. If that's his arbitration number, I mean, I think that's Jake, what you say, and I know that you say you're mixed. I'm absolutely not mixed. But
The only reason I say I'm mixed is because of Miguel Andujar. I mean, $2.2 million is not going to get done. You're gone.
Yeah.
But I don't hate or love seeing him go. Does that make sense? I don't hate Andujar.
I don't hate Andujar.
I don't hate the player Miguel Andujar. I hate the salary $2.2 million for that player.
And last year they agreed to terms before it got to that point. So do you see, I mean, like, could you even see that? Like, hey, how about we do another 1 million and we keep you on the 40-man? Like, I could see them doing that if they actually think he's worth sticking around. If he doesn't agree to it, they're gonna let him go.
I could see something like that, maybe.
Yeah. So the other guy that we talked about before this was Harleen Garcia, which at the same time we have to pick up options. And Harleen Garcia has a $3.25 million option for next year without pitching an inning, and there's no buyout for that. So the question is he one of those that's off this 40-man roster? Jake, you have a...
I mean, we're talking about picking up an option. Can he even pick up a baseball? I mean, for real, it's right. There's no way you're picking that up.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the first ones. I still don't know if there's a chance he signs the same sort of thing. Maybe re-signs for a lesser amount. But I think that's pretty. I think what they would do is just decline that and get it down to 40, and then still negotiate with him while other teams are as well. I think they're willing to miss out on that. Michael, Thomas Hatch, minimum salary guy going into next year. Just not enough there.
I think he's kind of in that dime a dozen reliever role where I don't have his stats up in front of me, but I'll go ahead and pull that up. When he was pitching, he wasn't doing well. He got optioned to Indianapolis, I think in August, and didn't come back even when rosters expanded, even when we had some inefficiency in the bullpen. I just don't see a place for him when there's options for them to get someone else. 4.08 ERA in 18 games, 28.2 innings, a little under a strikeout in an inning. And his whip, I mean, whip's not everything, but 1.57 whip for a reliever. He's 29. He can go somewhere else.
Yeah. So I have a couple more. Let's do it. Let's do it based on maybe outfielders, right? So Ed, I'll start with you. We have Connor Joe. I mean, you can throw Miguel Andujar in there, but I think we've already kind of discussed that. But Connor Joe, Josh Palacios, do you see this team carrying both of those beyond that day?
Probably not both of them. I feel like if they're going to carry one, it'll be Joe, and Palacios will probably get the boot.
Yeah, I think I'd lean that way there. There's some of Palacios where if he could be a bench guy on your team, I mean, I see value there. That certainly not as an everyday starter, but man, he had a flair for the dramatic. But I think Connor Joe ultimately gives you more value day in and day out. 31 doubles this year, which was tied for the team lead, I think. I think him and Reynolds and Hayes all had 31. Is that right? I have it. Hang on. Yeah. Yep. Tied for the team lead, those three players. So, like, there's something there. And obviously, that's a lot of, that's 133 games, which ideally he wouldn't get. But on a smaller sample, I think he can put up those or better numbers without being overexposed. With Sawinski there, a left-handed bat, Bay, who could possibly play outfield or who does play outfield, a left-handed bat, even Smith and Jigba, still having him around at some point, unless anybody wants to butt in and say Smith and Jigba's off this roster too. Then I'm with you. I don't see Palacios making it past that day. And then moving to the infield, Alika Williams, Alfonso Rivas. I know they don't play the same position, but those are two other guys who I think at least deserve some consideration on what we think there. Jake, any thoughts on either of those or both of them? I will say both of them have options. So it's not like you're like, oh, but I don't, we have to put him on the active roster if we keep him. Like, we don't. They've got options.
Yeah, but we also need room, and I see both of them gone because you got plenty of guys that can play both of those positions on the roster.
Yeah. I would venture to say that Rivas probably has a better chance, or I guess you can say worse chance of staying. You don't have a better chance of being dropped, right? that doesn't exist. But you have a worse chance of staying early. Where Alika, I think if they get it down to 40, he's the guy that stays there until they need to. Whether it's even adding a Rule 5 guy or whether it's a free agent coming in. I thought about the same for Palacios. Like, well, maybe we'd keep a hold of him until if they sign a center fielder or a right fielder. Maybe that is McCutchen later on. Maybe, you know what I mean? It's like that. We all believe that McCutchen will be re-signed, right? Does anybody not believe that? Exactly. Hear the birds. Okay. We believe he will be re-signed. I said last week on our show that I think that they will really slow roll that because of this reason, because of the 40-man guys and how many decisions they have to make right now. You'd have to cut ties with somebody early that, maybe you could have used in some sort of trade as a throw-in player. Somebody like Alika Williams, I think Connor Joe might be, and I'm maybe speaking out of turn here, but might be the most tradable player that we have on this roster. That makes sense. As far as value, I just don't know. Like trading Nick Gonzalez to somebody, they're gonna be like, yeah, but we don't really. You know what I mean? Do they even believe in him yet? I don't know. But you know who Connor Joe is, and you'd probably give up something for it. Where these other guys, I don't know. There's questions that I have. I don't know what role they're going to end up playing. So, and like I said, I might be speaking out of turn there. I don't know about that one. So we'll brush by that. So that's 5 guys there. Was there anybody else that I didn't mention that sticks out? I know that like bullpen arms are so dime a dozen. Tom, you said that about Thomas Hatch, and it's like, that is so true. Bailey Falter, even like Yuri De Los Santos, like where are we at there? Because is he out of options yet? I don't know, but I think it's getting close. I'm looking now. No, he's still good.
He
Andre
only used one option this year.
Right. So Andre Jackson and Roansy Contreras are out of options. Oh, you know what? Thomas Hatch is out of options. So that is actually, that's a no-brainer. Angel Perdomo, out of options. Bailey Falter, out of options. Which Bailey Falter, to me, would have been that guy where I'd be like, yeah, put him in AAA, and he can be help if we have injuries. But now I'm starting to, well, if he's out of options, why not option or DFA him to the minor leagues now? See if anybody takes him. If they do, you at least have time to replace that player, like that body, you know what I mean? With a minor league signing or something. Is any different beliefs on Bailey Falter?
I don't know what he is long term. And I think he kind of alternated good and bad starts. I'm more a believer in what Perdomo can do because he showed when he was healthy that he can be a shutdown southpaw out of the pen. And if you look at his analytics, he's at or near the top in a lot of like spin rate and extension because he's 6'8".
Yeah.
Like a lot of the perceived velocity is so much higher because of how far he's able to go with his arm. And that does a lot for him and deception for hitters. So I think there's that intrinsic value. I'd be more inclined to keep him than someone like Falter.
Yeah. And not to mention that Andre Jackson, another guy without options, those are your like starter / Jake's favorite word, bulk guys who really, what we used to call a long man, you know what I mean? If you have an opener or if somebody gets hurt early, they're the guys that are going to give you 3-4 innings. You can't carry both him and Falter. On your show we did the month by month recap, and one of the notes I had for March and April is that Rodolfo Castro played all but one game in that stretch, along with some others, and Hayes played them all in that 20-8 run, and he played in 27 games. And then just to get rid of him for Bailey Falter still surprises me, but he's not on the roster, so we don't have to talk about him. and quite frankly, moving forward, I would think that maybe Bailey Falter is not on the roster either. And it might be just one of those DFA him. If somebody takes him, they do. If not, we'll keep him in AAA, and if we need him, I think they won't just release him. I think if he sticks, he'll stick. See what they can get.
Yep.
Is there anybody else in that group of anyone? So we brought them up. I don't really think that there is. Colin Selby's got options. Is anybody like excited about Colin Selby right now?
We talked to Craig Toth a couple weeks ago about Selby and how he was called up too early.
Yeah.
He's got a really good, what is it? His like a splitter or a slider that has really high spin rate and worked well in the Arizona Fall League last year, but he just couldn't locate anything this year. So I don't know if that is just a one-off, if maybe the moment got too big for him being in the big leagues, what that holds for him going forward. He definitely needs to shift gears and try to get things figured out because what he was showing this season can't be who he is if he's going to have a major league career. But like you said, he has options. He can go
Right.
back to the minors. Cody Bolton's another one.
Yeah.
You have higher expectations than what he showed, but he's got options. So
But he has options,
guys,
and that's yep, absolutely. Okay, so obviously there's enough guys there that this isn't going to be like, oh crap, this is when you get good, sometimes you have to get rid of good players. Like we have guys we can get rid of. there's room to grow. With that, one of the things that we're looking forward here is biggest needs for improvement going into this year. Coincidentally, in our episode that we recorded with you guys, we both had bullpen options as kind of a surprise that we were excited the way it was. Yet here we are listing a bunch of bullpen arms that we'd be really willing to get rid of, which eliminates depth in the bullpen. So I don't know if maybe even like we're talking biggest needs for improvement. Pitching depth in general might be one of those things, despite the fact that we have some guys that we like more in the bullpen side of things than the rotation side. But why don't we talk about some of the biggest needs for improvement, and we can just kind of go around. Jake, maybe start with you, something that, if you were just to name one, and then kind of go through and some, where we need to improve in 2024.
Our young guys, just as a group, the young guys got to take that big step forward. And if we're going to make our rebuild a success, similar to we keep comparing it to the Orioles rebuild, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to make that jump, our young guys, like they're young guys, you got to take that step forward. And we were hoping to see that actually like happen kind of right away, like theirs did, but it doesn't always play out that way. But take that big step forward this offseason coming into next year and just and be better. One of these young guys, take a hold of your role and go win a battle. Don't kind of have this position battle and just let it go. You know what I mean?
Good descriptor.
It's just I feel like that's what happened this year.
I mean, if you want to hear good like analysis of things, you got to go to these podcasts where guys use as a descriptor for how somebody did. Like this is where the real stuff is, guys. Michael, how about you?
We've got just the quality descriptors on this. I think that the biggest need for improvement, and it's pretty obvious, is that starting pitching, we need to have more depth. And I think a lot of podcasts felt like they didn't properly address it coming into this season. I think that it looked like we had some options going into spring training, but then we just got hit with the injuries, losing Burrows, losing Brubaker. Velasquez only lasted a month and change. Hill was mostly ineffective. Contreras and Ortiz were both very ineffective for large parts of the season. And that just destroyed the team because you only had Keller and Oviedo being able to handle 2/5 of the games for most of the year. And they each went 30 plus starts and had, sub 4.5 ERAs, but you need to have a little bit more standing. You need to take the opus off of the bullpen to handle that many innings in order to potentially contend. Like going back to what Jake was saying about the Orioles and us wanting to be like them, the Orioles haven't had a lot of free agent signings, have mostly depended on their internal development. Young guys like Kyle Bradish, Adley Rutschman, the development of other players and some guys who have become veterans. That's pretty much the layout, the blueprint that the Pirates need to be trying to use to develop this talent. They just need some pitching, and we've got some younger guys who hopefully can come up and excel. Priester needs to take a step forward. You got to hope guys like Paul Skeens is ready by midseason, Jared Jones, Burrows might come back next year at some point, and some of the other ones like Solomito, eventually Bubba Chandler, see what you've got from there. Jackson Wolf, our recent acquisition from the Padres. He's
Mhm.
got some potential. You can't have enough pitching, and the problem is that we did not have enough pitching. They got to go out and get at least 2 free agents who are going to be able to do something in this team.
Yeah. Ed, what do you think?
I think we need to play. I mean, there's a huge lack of productive at bats, in my opinion. Whether it be laying down a bunt to get a guy over, getting a stack fly, having advance to third, or get a run, striking out in huge situations. Saw that all year long. To me, it's like very fundamentally based, but they also just lack the ability to do so.
Yeah. So much frustration from the word that I can't think of. I talked about it with Bay when we were talking earlier about Bay. Discipline, fundamentals, those sort of things just seem to not be a part of any of our players. And I don't know that that's necessarily just a Pittsburgh thing. I know that like nobody's bunting anymore. The analytics say that bunting a guy over is giving up an out. So they don't like it, but there's still a lot of baseball people who will tell you, well, you increase your chance of scoring 1 run, and they want to score 2 runs. And so like that's the difference. And I think sometimes 1 run does make that much of a difference. And what analytics can never capture is what it does what it does to the way that you feel, whether it's momentum, whether it's anything. I think sometimes doing your job, doing unselfish things like that, that goes a long way in in the rest of the players. But when none of them can do it, I mean, that is, the problem I have there is, are we going to push for that? Our players can't bunt, but is Derek Shelton ever going to ask him to do it? So many times he just doesn't. And I wonder if it's because they can't or if he just believes it's not worth it. That's one thing I'll say about Shelton is I can disagree with him on something, but if he says, well, this is what I believe, then I'm not going to complain about his decision because I already knew that's like, I already knew that was the decision he was going to make. It's just for me, I'm like, well, we just disagree with why you're making that decision.
Philosophy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and if you don't have the skill set to do something, you're not going to do it. You know what I mean? So if we're not good bunters across the board, then you're not going to bunt a guy over. You're not going to try to have him do it because your odds are not good, and you may just end up with a guy on first and 1 out. Yeah. Because he bunted it right back to the pitcher, and the pitcher threw it to second. And it didn't even get him over. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Well, and I think that probably leans into his point that if we got better at it, we could do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. For me, I really like the way that, like, I was initially thinking, like, well, starting pitching, first base, center field, or whatever. But you guys got me thinking because, Jake, you went to specifically the younger players need to step up. Ed, you went to fundamentals and, good at bats, things like that. I felt like that they wanted to have good at bats, but they weren't. Like it was one-sided, right? We're taking too many pitches. That's not necessarily a good at bat. It's just a patient at bat, which sometimes gets you in trouble. Sometimes I just wonder, like, what it is we're seeing in certain people to keep putting them in a situation that they're not succeeding in. And I thought, like, to use a bad example, we talked about Bay getting as many opportunities as he did, and I just can't figure out why none of those opportunities went to Nick Gonzalez at the point where he was doing so well in AAA. And even when he got called up, it was different. Bay just seemed to get all of the opportunities. But then on the other side, they did well with Dowry Moretta, where early when he was doing so well with inherited runners, instead of saying like, we're going to reward you by giving you more seventh inning and 8th inning appearances, they kept putting him out there with guys on base, excelling at what he was good at. If we could do more of that, more of the situational baseball, maybe there's something to that. And you know, Derek Shelton and his crew is all about developing a game plan, and a lot of times sticking to it, even if it means we're making the wrong decision. You know, maybe having more of a game plan based around these sort of things. I don't know, and maybe I'm off base there. Maybe they did do that, and I'm just thinking off base. But I had some different thoughts here, and the thoughts that I had, you guys already said. So I was trying to come up with something. Is that fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
So with that said, and the needs for improvement, more speaking to, you know, kind of where I was initially leaning, let's talk about some off-season predictions or projections and all that stuff. And so, Michael, when you and I were messaging about what we wanted to do and what we wanted to cover, you'd sent this list. And so I'm going to base it off of that from what you initially sent. And we'll go around. There's a guy that you want the team to sign, a guy you want the team to trade for, and then a guy you think a team will acquire. And we're going to leave McCutchen out of this, I think. Because I think that's, like we said earlier, we had the birds when I said, does anybody think anything different? So we'll leave McCutchen out of this. But I want to kind of go like a step further here. In the first one, we'll get it out of the way. You know, instead of just saying you want them to sign, let's make it a little more realistic, but maybe far-fetched to a point where you could say, like, I really want them to get this guy. Even if you think they won't, you really want them to go get this guy. Obviously, you're not going to say Ohtani. That's ridiculous and impossible, in my opinion. But like, what is a guy that you would want the team to target in free agency specifically going into this offseason? And Michael, I'll go ahead and start with you on this one.
So free agency, I just went with a relief pitcher, and my main target was to get a left-handed pitcher, and I went with Brent Suter. So among pitchers, minimum 150 plate appearances this past season, he had the second lowest average exit velocity and was in the 88th percentile for xERA, 97th percentile for barrel percentage, and 99th in hard hit percentage. He's previously with the Brewers, was with the Rockies this year, wasn't affected by the altitude, and has just been a shutdown pitcher, not just a loogie. He's able to get out lefties and righties equally well. So if they're looking to add another left-handed pitcher, if they don't keep Perdomo and don't keep Harlan Garcia and Jose Hernandez, maybe the tail off at the end of the season wasn't just by attrition, is really something that they need to keep an eye on. Having Suter in there, I think could really be a big, crucial piece to the bullpen along with Baraki. Like, you'd have two solid lefties there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So Perdomo and Baraki would be the two that are without options. Jose Hernandez, obviously, with being a Rule 5, has all of them. So I think he would be more apt to be your depth, and maybe Perdomo or Baraki if it's if they're being cheap. Then they go with one of those guys on their way out, or carry 3, which they did for part of this season. So I mean that's possible as well. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. Because of the fact that I have liked what I've seen. I haven't even thought of that. So, Ed, you got a free agent out there you'd like him to target?
Yeah. I'm going to stay with Mike in the pitching side, but I'm going to go with the starter. I'd like him to go after Sonny Gray.
Yes.
I think he can slide right in as number 2 or number 3 spot in the rotation for me. Seems to be more successful in the smaller market teams.
Yeah.
In New York, he struggled a lot, but there's just players that cannot play in those markets. He's probably one of them.
Yeah, that's great. And for those of you not on the video side, I clapped, literally clapped, because I love it. I absolutely love it. Jake, what do you got?
So you can't help but stay in the pitching side of things, right? I mean, there's we're doing the realistic ones right now. Is that where we're at?
Well, I think
I'm trying to.
This is free agent. You're going after them. I know, like Michael's definitely was realistic, right?
Yeah. I feel like both of them were
Sonny
pretty
Gray
realistic,
was realistic.
I think Gray's going to be a stretch. He's going to get a qualifying offer, and I don't think Pirates are going to go for it. But
Yep.
he'd be a great pool.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sitting here looking through the list too, because I mean, there's not a ton out there, but I wouldn't mind taking a chance on like Jack Flaherty.
Oh,
I think Jack Flaherty's he's 28 or 29 years old. Just had some really good years in St. Louis. He got hit with that injury, hasn't quite been the same since, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to return to that, and he could return to that over this offseason. You know what I'm saying? Give him that time to recuperate and fully get recovered from everything. And it could be a good signing for us. You know, and you could slide him in the same role as a Sonny Gray if he can return to form. You're talking about a number 2, number 3 guy.
I think maybe down the road, yeah. And I don't say that to disagree with you, but the difference, because I could see Sonny Gray and Jack Flaherty. I mean, I could see that as being, if going out and getting Sonny Gray doesn't mean, I mean, we have 2 starting pitchers, in my opinion.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now, Rowanzi's going to get a chance, but he's going to have to prove that even in spring training. I'm not going in to spring training saying, well, Rowanzi doesn't have any options, so he's our number 5. We only need, well, you still would need 2. But like, I'm not even there. And Quinn Priester and all these guys, like, for sure. I think a dynamic, and this is me moving into mine. And I mean, I would double down on both of those. I mean, getting a guy like a Sonny Gray, and I'm going to name my other 2, and that is Jordan Montgomery and Aaron Nola. Now, Montgomery played for 2 teams. He will not get a qualifying offer. Would not be eligible because he played for 2 teams. So there is a bonus there. But I also think that Jordan Montgomery, that money's going to keep going up and up and up. And I mean, I think this is where the Pirates are and what they need to do. And Sonny Gray, you're probably going, I think my biggest fear with Sonny Gray would be if he's chasing 5 years. If he's chasing 5 years, he's 34 going into next year. If I could get him on a 2-year deal, big AAV, that would be more ideal for someone like that. But a Aaron Nola or a Jordan Montgomery, like, I'm going 5 years there. I'll give him $100 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're likely both to decline the qualifying offer and then probably make the same money, just more guaranteed over the course of more years. I would go with either one of them. I'm a big Aaron Nola believer. I think this year I think you'll see in the postseason too. And if this team is planning on winning, then I think going after somebody like that, just one of those 3. And then secondary, a guy like Jack Flaherty or, a Vince Velasquez type guy. Even though Flaherty's had more success in the past, I think signing one of these guys who's had a rough year to eat innings early. Maybe that is Velasquez. I mean, maybe they go back there, but it has to be somebody who has something to prove. And that's just because we do have young pitching who could push them out of the way. We do have, I don't know about like Brubaker and how soon these guys are going to be back and what kind of impact they could make. But even a situation where it's Brubaker or Mike Burrows that are kind of coming in, and if you have a guy like that who's struggling, but I believe that this team needs to make a statement and go after one of these guys. And I don't know, maybe that's your first step of competing. Imagine what it does for your guys when you say, oh yeah, they believe in us now. You know what I mean?
Right.
One guy you want the team to trade for, and I'll go first on this one. I'm bowing out. I'm going to leave this for you guys. I don't think in the way of trades. Shout out Yark. He's always trading people, and but I don't think that way. And I will say this as my cop out. You see the graph, the how they were built graph that goes out for the postseason. Jim Stam put it up a couple of days ago. If any of you are following him, and he basically said, like, what do you guys think? And I saw people saying, trade your prospects. And I'm like, you look at the teams that have a bunch of trades. They didn't trade their prospects. The Tampa Bay has 16 trades to make this roster. Guess what? They didn't trade prospects to get those players. They traded expensive players to get those prospects and then brought them up. And that's the same thing that Baltimore did, and the same thing that Miami did, and the same thing that, unfortunately, and it sucks for people who like to have long tenured players. When players get expensive, you deal them for more players that you then have to. I mean, we're already there. We're already doing this. And, that's the big thing. Like Cruz came in a trade. Sawinski came in a trade. Reynolds came in a trade. Oviedo, Bednar, Holderman, Moretta, Joe, Marcano, Endy, Alika, CSN. Like, we're already doing this. We're already trading to get a roster. But unfortunately, it's more trading away than trading for. And I don't want to trade away from our good players right now, because I think this is when you don't. But I don't know as much about who's available in trades, so please have at it, because I'd love for someone here to convince me wrong. I don't care who goes first at this point.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not too far away from where you stand as well. I don't know anybody who's out there that I just would just love to have on this team so bad that I'd be willing to give up what we're working on, what we're building. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of with you. I don't think we should make any big splash trades.
Okay, so here's the thing. Me and Jake are holding that sign that says the Pirates shouldn't trade away their young players. Prove me wrong. you see the guy sitting there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, I'll jump in on this one. I think that the free agent market right now for first baseman is as sparse as it's ever been. And their best potential for getting someone who will be able to hold that role for the foreseeable future is via trade. And before Alonso signed up with Boris, I thought, oh, well, Mets are looking to regroup. Maybe they'll trade him.
And that's all we have for this week.
That's going to happen.
I'm out.
So I went West Coast, and the Giants, they've got a difficult division. They just fired their manager. I'm thinking they might look to start getting rid of guys who are going to be free agents in the next few years and boosting up that farm system. So I'm looking at Lamont Wade Jr. He tied for 10th highest xOBP in MLB among qualified hitters, above average whiff and strikeout rates, elite walk and chase rates, 7th highest walk percentage overall. It's his first full season at first base. He's played some outfield, so it was a little bit shaky. He's coming from San Francisco, so he's used to spacious, beautiful ballparks on the water. could fit in well with the young core. He's got 2 more years of arbitration and only made $1.375 million in 2023. So likely we'll only be looking to get maybe like, I forget what MLB trade rumor said, but it was something like 2.5 or 3 million that he'd be looking to get in 24. Definitely affordable for what the team would be expecting from, a corner infield position.
Yeah, 3.3 million is what they have him projected at.
Yeah. So I don't think he would be super expensive. And I think we can trade some younger guys like a Swaro or like someone who's in like low A or even in like DSL sort of thing, like 2 or 3 of those guys. I can't say like specifically who. I'm terrible at that. I don't think anyone's good at it.
Yeah.
Who's not in the know.
Well, it depends on what they like. You know what I mean?
But he's got 2 years of control left. It's going to get us somebody who's going to be in the position for that time. And the Giants would be able to get some high upside young players if we go like low A or something like that. If they trade like a Lonnie White or something, I might be kicking myself in a year or two. But we need to have a first baseman who's capable with the bat.
Yeah.
I don't think they should just go out and take Santana just because he wants to come back. He had some really shaky time here. Defense was great. Love the defense, but he's not going to play 162. He's probably not going to play 120 plus. He's going to be 37.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair. There are some leadership qualities there that Santana brings along, and I know that a lot of people are all about it. But to me, just to go one step further on the Santana thing, I wouldn't be mad about it. But it's a 1-year patch, and this is at least 2, right? And you know what I'm saying. So, and for a lot less, you would assume.
yep.
I mean, maybe just significant. I don't know how much less. I guess probably half. For 1 year, and then then you deal with the next year. But it's a good point. I didn't actually know he was playing a lot of first base. That was news to me. It's interesting. 116 games at first base this year for him. Ed, what do you got to trade there? You gonna convince me? Because that was pretty close.
Yeah, I've got nothing to convince you. I'm in the same boat as you guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I do think Rhys Hoskins is out there too. Go after him.
He's gonna have a qualifying offer probably.
You think so?
I think the Phillies are gonna.
If they offer him a qualifying
thinking,
offer, he will sign it.
Probably.
He'll take it.
And then they'll be like, okay, well, we've got you healthy for next year.
Yep.
Because the thing is, if he didn't get injured in spring training, he probably would have had a strong season.
Yeah.
And unless they think Harper's going to be their long-term first baseman, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, if they offer it to him,
they're going to look for it.
They're going to have to be prepared to pay it because he'll accept it to use it as a prove it deal. Because I don't know that he gets $20 million AAV if he goes into free agency right now. Coming off of an injury like that, I don't know. I think teams are going to want to see it first. But maybe not. Okay, so let's go on to a little prediction. And Kutch does not work. And I'll even say, I mean, you put in here Santana, so I'm going to say the same thing. Unless you've got nothing else and you say, well, I don't want him to really sign Santana, but I think they will. One guy that you think the team will acquire. So this is free agency or trade. Ed, we'll go in backwards order here and start with you.
Okay.
He's like, jerk.
I like getting out of the way early.
That's good.
Someone I was looking at that I feel like would fit in with what the Pirates have done in the recent past is Luis Severino. Coming off of the rough year, probably be a fairly cheap option. Could almost sign like a prove-me deal. Obviously needs starting pitching. So for me, he falls in line and checks all the boxes for that.
Yeah, kind of like what Jake was saying about Flaherty. Kind of that same, same sort of thing. Michael?
So this would obviously be a big reach, but because the White Sox are kind of in turmoil, if they decide they want to get rid of their all-star center fielder, I would not be opposed to taking him off their hands. Luis Robert Jr. Like 857 OPS. He's got a couple more years of control. Gives us another outfielder. I don't think he's like super in center, but capable. Oh, actually, he won a Gold Glove in 2020.
I was going to say
that barely counts.
He's good.
Yeah, he's good. 2020 is a really interesting year, but basically it's there.
Yeah, so he does have a Gold Glove. He's got that little Rawlings on his glove. Immediately cements center field. You don't have to worry about Bay. Sawinski can shift more comfortably over to right field, and you've got an established bat. He's also got some speed. What does he have? 20. He went 20 for 24 in stolen base attempts last season. So you basically have the amount of stolen bases you get from Bay, but with way better success rate. And a killer bat.
38 home runs.
Yeah.
Right.
Bay had what, 7?
Bay had 2.
Bay had 2?
Bay had 2.
So
in the first week of the season, it felt like. And then never hit another one.
Because he had a walk-off against, what was that, the White Sox?
And he had the one in Boston that was a home run in 3 parks.
Yeah. So.
And he can't bunt.
Going back to it, Yark's having a field day with this. He's like, yes, the Bay nonsense is over.
So you think that this is somebody that you think they will, like, on a scale of?
No,
like,
you were saying dream. This on
this
a scale of 1 to 100 on likelihood.
Okay.
Likelihood would be like a 3.
Because
we've got the prospects. We could technically make it happen, and the White Sox are not. They're kind of, like I said, in turmoil. If they're looking to completely shift gears and offload anything they can, maybe that's the kind of move that they want to make. Like, they traded Jake Berger for nothing at the deadline to the Marlins, and he's done nothing but rake since he got down there. Maybe they want to get rid of Robert for, a couple really low minor leaguers who might not amount to anything.
Yep, potential free agent in 26 with a $2 million buyout. In 26 and 27, $20 million if you pick up the option. So,
and those are going to be years where we're paying next to nothing to Reynolds and Hayes on their long contracts. So,
yep. But we don't know how much we're going to be paying Aaron Nola or Sonny Gray. So,
sure.
or Reese Hoskins. So we don't know yet. Jake, you have anybody there that on your list there?
I mean, not really. I didn't have a whole lot of time to really dig into this stuff.
Here comes the excuses, guys.
Wow. No, but like you convinced me that would be a trade I'd be willing to part ways with some guys for.
Sure.
That's definitely a good call out. See, mine would have probably have been like a Jordan Montgomery, but we've already touched on him.
Went down that path.
Yeah. So.
Okay. I think that's a pretty good place to be. Now we're all going to double down on these, or we're going to back off on them in weeks to come. So if you're new to our podcast, like you don't blow us off saying they said this. Come back and hear how we change. And if you're new to the 412 double play, it's the same thing. They're going to say, wow, I said this and I was way up. It's fine. It's fine. We're all human. And so the idea is that you keep coming back and we keep being part of the discussion. So 412 double play podcast. How's everybody go and listen to that?
You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, pretty much on all different platforms. We don't do video because Ed doesn't shave enough for it. But audio only, easy enough. Listen to it when you're in the car.
Fits in well here.
Yeah. So, yeah, 412 double play podcast.
That's awesome, and they're all year round, right? It's not a seasonal thing. You guys are rolling through the off season and everything.
We're going into the off season. We did every other week last off season, but now we're going to try to include some guests in talks with a former manager to talk with to have on the podcast after the season ends.
That's awesome.
After the off season ends. Sorry, Jim and Gary.
That's awesome. Yeah, go check it out, guys. It's very good. And during season, I said this to you before. Your recaps are. I told Jake one time during the year, I was like, listen, if people want recaps, they can go listen to 412. We just need to blow over these things. You guys do a great job, and thanks for bringing this up and having doing this with us. I think this is a good time to kind of share the thoughts and ideas with other podcasts, and we've done that a little bit with the fan forum. That's been really cool, and so it's good to branch out and kind of connect with each other. It's really cool. So thank you, because you started this, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for hosting it.
Jake, you got anything to close it out here?
I'm just going to say I think first base is going to be interesting this offseason. I can see a Carlos Santana reunion and Triolo getting a lot of time at first base.
Lots to talk about.
Yeah,
lots to talk about going forward. And once again, if you've been with us for a while, no more Fridays episodes for the offseason for sure. So just once a week here, and video, audio, all of those things. I lost my spot here. We're good. Let's finish this thing up. We're good to go. Ed, Michael, thank you guys again. From everybody here, let's hear a Let's Go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!